Well, I hear for podcasting, they recommend that you actually make like 7 shows and then release them. That way, if you miss a week, you have a buffer.
Yeah.
And that way you don't like beat yourself up too bad because like consistency is really important.
I've heard that you should release 3 shows at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, I've been recording episodes so that I'll be able to release 3 and then release 1 a week, even if I missed a week or something.
Right. Yeah. You always want a buffer because just consistency is super critical. Because once you have like some fans, they want to get in the habit of listening to it. I did a podcast project. I'm still working on it, called Cast.market. And we have a search engine for all the shows and we track their popularity. So as soon as you launch, we'll index your show and you'll be able to track if you're popular in Vietnam or in Columbus, or be able to track your sort of analytics.
Is this like is this a standalone website or an app? Or
you can just go to Cast.market and you can see all the shows and see like the frequency at which they release their shows and where in the world people are listening. Turns out some of the most popular shows are language learning because it's a completely free way to learn English. And like there are billions of people all over the world that want to learn English, and this is the cheapest way to do it.
We are sitting in a bar, but it's also a co-working space. Right?
That's true. Yeah. So it's 3 things. It's a bar, and it's a pierogi restaurant, and it's a co-working space. So all 3 things. And it's here in Columbus in the old Max and Irma's in German Village. And that's where I'm working these days.
Before moving back to Columbus, you lived in San Francisco for like 15 years?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, I lived there for a long time. I first moved out to Northern California for a few years to work on a new company. And then I moved down into San Francisco to do all sorts of stuff.
Let's quickly let people know like some of the apps that you've released in the past.
Right. So when the App Store launched, we released an app called Recorder, which ended up being either top 1 or 2 selling app. We were one of the first at the time. At the launch of the App Store, the prices were $5 and $10, and we were like the first ones to realize that you really wanted to price things at like $1 because popularity was more important than your price, really, because popularity drove more and more downloads because of the way the charts worked. So we were part of that whole thing and saw that unroll and saw how Apple did it, and learned a lot from that, and went on to make music creation products. So we made we did the Rebirth port. So we ported Propellerhead's Rebirth to the iPhone and the iPad later on. The iPad version is beautiful. I think it's really great. The iPhone version is pretty good. But at the time, we didn't know whether the iPhone had enough power to do Rebirth. We suspected it did, but we didn't know until I was able to play the demo song out of a iPhone 1, and it was amazing to hear that old cheesy tune come out of the iPhone. And we knew at that point that it was possible. So I worked for about 2 months without even knowing if it would be possible. And there was no way to know. Like I couldn't. There was no way to know because the iPhone you never really knew how much power you had. You never really knew how much memory you had because Apple kind of locked that stuff away from you. And then there wasn't like if I spent the time benchmarking it like on a PC or something, it doesn't even really translate that well. So truthfully, I had to spend like 2 months porting it, and then before I knew that it was even going to be possible. It was an archaeology project. It was super cool.
Oh, and for those who don't know what Reason was that Reason?
Well, this is Rebirth. So Rebirth is there's these 4 instruments, and it's a 808, a 909, and a 303. Well, then actually Rebirth has 2 303s. So those are the instruments for acid techno, which is a genre of music. And if you put those instruments together in any configuration, they always make acid techno. So right. So Rebirth is awesome because like you can sit down and anyone can literally turn the knobs and create something, and it's always going to be acid techno. And it's always going to be dance music, and you can't not make dance music with it. It was wildly popular. It was like the equivalent of Doom for the music industry. Doom is this video game that like forever changed what our perceptions of video games can be. And Rebirth was the same way. And just like Doom and even Minecraft had all these people who would mod it. People would mod Rebirth like crazy. There are all these different skins, and people would tweak the sounds and circuit bend it and all this stuff. So it's awesome to be a part of that.
And that's after that, you guys you've done a lot of projects for existing synth brands.
Yes.
As well as additional synths. Actually, I want to take a step back quickly. One of the things I think is interesting about you is as a child, your mom's a music teacher, your dad's an electrical engineering teacher, professor.
Right.
So you have both a technical and a musical and artistic upbringing.
Yeah.
Right. And then kind of those two things dovetailed together into what is maybe most of your career so far.
Right.
Which is like audio software.
Yeah, that's right. Most of my time has been spent making audio software. And the idea to me is that an instrument is the ultimate combination of art and technology. And the reason why I think that, most people think of instruments as these sort of like old things, but a piano was once very high tech, and a violin was once high tech as well. And an instrument requires a certain amount of science and a certain amount of art in order to have it all come together. The visuals of an instrument matter, but they're not you wouldn't want to sacrifice the performance for the visual characteristic, but instruments are beautiful. So anyway, it's a combination of design, art, and technology, but they're also a combination of culture, because an instrument won't come into any kind of popularity until people start using it to write music with it. And so it all has to kind of come together. You got to combine culture, art, science, technology. It's like the ultimate combination of all of these really challenging fields. So I've always been very fascinated in like what it takes to make them, and and their impact on art and science.